Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things, and today I thought I would do a Christmas book haul. So I don't do book hauls very often. I don't think I've done a book haul since last Christmas, but I did get quite a few books for Christmas, so I thought I would have a quick chat about them today and share some of the great books I got for Christmas because I'm very excited to get to all of these in the near future. To start off with, I have 5 Penguin Classics books, all of which I have read before but I didn't own a physical copy of. I realised in Victober when I was doing a video on all of the Victorian books that I've ever read that I don't actually own a lot of my absolute favourite novels, and that's because they're Victorian books that I read on Kindle or I read as a teenager from my mum's copies, not from my own, and so I just don't have physical copies of. So I asked my mum for a few of my favourite books for Christmas and she got me 5 Penguin Classics of some of my favourite Victorian novels. So we have Charlotte Bronte's Villette, which I absolutely love. It's a book about a girl called Lucy Snow who travels from England to Belgium to become a schoolteacher and everything that goes on from there. It's wonderful. I think I love it slightly more than Jane Eyre, and I have done a full review of it in the past, which I will link down below in the description. Next I have The Odd Woman by George Gissing, which is a book that I read back in Victober and absolutely loved. It is a very feminist Victorian book, which is something that makes me very, very happy. It revolves around the lives of several women in the Victorian period, some of whom own a typewriting school where they teach women how to type in order to help them get better lives in society when they are unmarried. It's a really, really brilliant book, really, really interesting in terms of gender in the Victorian period, and one I definitely recommend, and I'm very excited to own a physical copy of because I'm sure I will be rereading it at some point in the future. Next I have Thomas Hardy's Jude the Obscure. This is my favourite Thomas Hardy novel and one of my favourite books, and I can't believe I didn't have a copy of it until now. I really, really love this one a lot. It is about a man called Jude. He is from a working class background, but he loves Latin and studying and classics, and all he wants to do is go to university. But unfortunately, because of the background he's from and because of a decision he makes early on in his life, that just never happens. It's a absolutely brilliant book. Pretty miserable, I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't read it as your first Hardy, but it is so, so wonderful. I love it so much. I think the character relationships in this and the dialogue is just fantastic, and I'm glad to have a physical copy because, again, I'm sure I will reread it at some point in the future. And the next 2 books I have are Anthony Trollope novels. So the first is The Small House at Allington by Anthony Trollope. This is the 5th book in the Barchester Chronicles and follows 2 sisters and their various romantic relationships. I adore this book so, so much. It's my favourite novel of the Barchester Chronicles and one I absolutely loved. I will be talking about this a bit more in my favourite books of 2017. And then the other Trollope book my mum gave me is The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. I haven't decided whether this or The Small House at Allington is my favourite Anthony Trollope novel. I read this when I was 15 and then I read it again when I was 18, but I haven't read it since then. I absolutely love this book very, very much. It revolves around what happens when a man comes into Victorian society with a lot of money, but no respectability, no accreditation. No one really knows who he is, but he has so much money that everyone flocks to him. It's a really, really interesting book, quite interesting to compare with Our Mutual Friend, I think. Such a brilliant portrait of society with a lot of characters, quite Dickensian in its structure, and just so, so wonderful. This is one I'm definitely going to be rereading this year, so I'm really excited to have a physical copy of it. Another classic I received for Christmas, though not a Penguin one, is this, which is Trilby by George du Maurier, which my friend Eleanor gave to me. Eleanor's not on BookTube, but she does have a literary blog where she reviews books, so I will link that down below. I'm really excited to read this. This is a Victorian book that I've never heard of from the late Victorian period, which is set in 1850s Paris and is about various English artists who are operating in Paris at the time, so that sounds really, really interesting. And it's by George du Maurier, who is Daphne du Maurier's grandfather, so that will be quite interesting as well. I'm also hoping to read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier this year, so it'll be interesting to connect the 2. Moving on to more modern novels, my grandmother gave me for Christmas A Pale View of the Hills by Kazuo Ishiguro. I love Ishiguro a lot. I've read 5 of his books, I think. This is one of his earlier works, and I believe it follows a Japanese woman who is living in England, so I'm quite interested to see how this one turns out, and it's quite short, so I'm hoping to get to this one quite soon. And then I have 2 books by Tracy Chevalier. I told my mum that I'd really, really loved A Girl with a Pearl Earring, and I knew that my mum had read a lot more Tracy Chevalier. I've only read the one, so she gave me these 2 for Christmas, which I'm really excited about. I don't know much about either of these 2 books, At the Edge of the Orchard or The Last Runway, but I believe they're both set in 19th century American West, which I'm looking forward to reading. I actually studied the American West in school quite a lot. When I was sort of 15, 16, I did a very long sort of section of my GCSE on that period in history, so I'm quite excited to get to both of these. My mum also gave me Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman, which I'm really looking forward to reading. I've heard a lot about this on BookTube, and I've heard good things about it from Jen Campbell, who said that I would enjoy it, especially because I enjoyed Some by David Eagleton. Spiegelman, which was a really interesting book as well. This is like halfway between a novel and a short story collection, I believe, which is a form I greatly enjoy. And I think the idea, the premise of it is that all of the short stories in here are dreams that Einstein is having. I'm quite curious about this one. As you can see, I have a bookmark in the top because I am intending on starting this today, so hopefully you will hear my thoughts on this one in my January wrap-up. And my mum also gave me A Portable Shelter by Kirsty Logan. I enjoyed The Gracekeepers an awful lot, and I also really enjoyed her other short story collection, which I believe is called The Rental Heart and Other Stories. This is, again, a bit like Einstein's Dreams, sort of halfway between a novel and a short story collection. It follows two women who are about to have a child and all of the stories that they tell to their unborn child, which I think is going to be really, really enjoyable. And I know I like her writing a lot, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Another quite short one, so hopefully I'll get to this soon. And then I have 4 non-fiction books, which is quite exciting because I am hoping to read a bit more non-fiction in 2018. This is The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher by Kate Summersdale, which again my friend Eleanor gave to me. I'm really excited to read this one because I've heard a lot about it and I know it is thoroughly Victorian. It's sort of true crime and sort of like history of Victorian obsession with crime and detective stories, I believe. I've heard a lot of good things about this. I know my mum quite enjoyed it as well, so I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Then 2 books that my friend Lexi gave me. The first is Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi. I've heard a lot about this on BookTube, so I'm really looking forward to this one. It is a non-fiction book about 8 women who set up a sort of hidden book club, effectively, in Iran, reading Western classics that they were not allowed to read. So I think this is going to be a really, really interesting book about the love of literature as well as about Iran as a country, so I'm certainly looking forward to reading this one and we'll hopefully get to it fairly soon. And the other book Lexi gave me is The Novel Cure, which I've heard quite a lot about on BookTube, probably about a year ago, and does sound really quite fun. I'm probably going to dip in and out of this one, but I think it will be an enjoyable read. Basically, the way the book is set out is it suggests various ailments you might have and good novels to cure them. For example, if you are suffering from guilt, you ought to read Crime and Punishment. Or if you're broke, maybe try The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald or Money by Martin Amis. Finally, the last book I got for Christmas is this, which is Anthony Powell by Hilary Sperling. This is a biography of the author Anthony Powell, who's an author I really like. I adored his series A Dance to the Music of Time, and I'd really like to read some more by him. I will also be rereading A Dance to the Music of Time this year, as I spoke about in my reading goals, and I might even potentially host a read-along of it, but I'm still thinking about that, so let me know if you might be interested in such a thing. So my intention is, as well as rereading the series A Dance to the Music of Time, also to read this book this year as well. Possibly, if I can manage it, to read like the bits about Anthony Powell's life when he is the age of the main character in A Dance to the Music of Time, because I believe there is a lot of like similarity in their ages at the specific time that the books are set, if you see what I mean. My uncle Jonathan gave me this for Christmas, and he was the person who originally introduced me to Anthony Powell, and I actually gave him this for Christmas too, without knowing, so I find that quite an enjoyable coincidence. I'm really, really excited to read this book. I think it will be really, really interesting to discover a bit more about his life, and as well to see the connections between his life and A Dance to the Music of Time, as I believe there are quite a few. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to this one, as well as to rereading the novels of Anthony Powell this year. So that's it. Those are the books I received for Christmas. I'm very grateful for them all and I'm really excited to get to the ones I haven't read yet. Please let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these and which you would recommend I start with, because I'm really looking forward to reading all of these books. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another bookish video.